Well, this is what we're going to do first thing today. We have traded this spreader in. We're going to be going over to Kaz to pick up the spreader that we're going to replace this one with. We bought this one in November of 2018, so it's just over 4 years old. We have had a few of these size spreaders, and well, you'll see what we traded it in on once we get over to Kaz to hook onto that one and bring it home. But this is a SL124. The model before this one was an 8124. They made a couple of improvements and a couple of changes to these spreaders here. It's a 2,400 gallon spreader. I don't remember offhand how many bushel it holds, but it has the door cylinder is on the back side of the hammer area here. Before, it was on the inside in the oil bath, and it was kind of a goofy contraption the way they had that set up, but they did improve it quite a bit. The front end is a little different on this SL series compared to the 8100 series, but other than that, it's been a good spreader. It just does not work for us on box stall manure, and we spread a lot of pen packed manure, and not so much liquid anymore, like barn manure out of the free stalls. So we might as well head on over to Kaz and get that new spreader, right, Bub? You excited? Are ya? You gonna be the first one to run it, or you gonna let your sister run it? You're gonna run it. We got a pro push last year, and Alex got to run that first, and he was not too happy. So we're gonna pull it over there with this C500. Now, I know some of you might say, well, how don't you just pull it over there with a pickup? Well, why, when you've got a truck like that to pull it with? So the new spreader's a little bit bigger, a little more tongue weight. We just don't want to kill any of these Ford trucks we have around here. Plus, we don't have a hitch on these little mini trucks. So why don't we hit the road, Bub? Well, this is what things look like as we motor down Route 20 with this spreader. And you can see it's still in behind us here. We're just pulling at a nice 45, 50 miles an hour. The other reason why it's handy to use this truck is it's wired for an implement. In other words, we can plug that implement plug from the spreader right into the truck, and we have turn signals, brake lights, and everything else. Our pickups all have that flat prong plug on them, and we've got the implement style round plug on the C5. Now, the last time we made this trip this way with this truck, we had the 9560 in behind us, taking that in to have an engine replaced. Now, for some of you that don't know the story behind that, we ended up having a reman engine put in that back in July. It ran about 300 hours, and our connecting rod came out through the side of the block. Rumor has it that they ended up getting an engine for it, which they thought they wouldn't get one until around the 10th of February. However, they got one a week and 10 days ago. When I was over here looking at these spreaders, they had a SL124, which is a couple size bigger than the spreader that we have. They had one of them in stock, and they had this vertical beater spreader in stock. While I was looking at them spreaders, I went into the service department, and they were putting exhaust manifold on the engine that's going to go in that 9560. And one of the guys told me last night at the basketball game that they were setting the engine in the tractor yesterday, so we might end up hearing about that running towards the end of this week here. So we're about 3/4 of the way there. Looks like our tires are staying with us as far as wheel bearings go and whatever like that. So we're in pretty good shape. We were thinking about just putting the spreader on the lowboy, but this new spreader won't fit on the lowboy. The lowboy's only got a 24-foot deck on it. And I suppose if we back the wheels up over the top of the wheels on the lowboy, it might have worked, but then that's a pain in the ass hooking tractor up to it, and then you got to chain it down and all that stuff. So we'll just hook onto it and pull it. Right, Bob? Well, we're just getting ready to pull in the Kaz. Scenery hasn't changed much since we were here last. There's an 81 or an SL132 right there. That was one of the options, but we just felt that it was about the same as what we had. Would you have rather had that spreader? No? Yeah. Well, we'll get this thing parked and then we'll get hooked on to the other one here. Alright, we just stepped in the shop quick, and this young man's got this engine setting in this 9560, and they're going to have this running by the end of the day today. And here is the old engine that came out, and there is the hole that's in the block here. So he'll have that running by the end of the day. They've got a 9300 over there that they're going to turn into an autonomous tractor. See, no cab, no nothing. Well, we are hooked up and ready to go. Everything's all secured. Got the PTO tied up. Got our lights plugged in. And we'll go ahead and we'll hit the road. Get this back to Navarino. And Andrew could start spreading with it, right, Bob? Yeah. Now, let's see if we can get this pulled out of here. This has been parked here for a little while. We might have to get hooked onto, you know that, Bob?
So we're running this H and S spreader, and the P5 is stuck, so now we're using this 8400R to pull it out. not something you see every day. A tractor pulling a truck, pulling in a spreader.
Well, that 8400R is for sale. Rich was just telling me that that tractor deer owned, and it was never sold to a customer, and then they put it up for sale, and Kaz Equipment here got a hold of it. It's got like 4,000 hours on it. So all we were is stuck down in the ice there, the tires on the spreader, and it just did not want to come out of there with the road tractor on ice. So now we can go ahead and get back to the farm. And 9300 over there, I think that's a customer's tractor. That was a quad range. He was gonna hook on to us with the 9570, but he couldn't get a key out of it. I jumped up into 9320. It had a key in it, but we weren't sure if that was the same as a 9570, so he just jumped in 8400 because that had a key in it. So they've got some smaller spreaders over there. Well, we're back here at the farm. We've got the C5 unhooked from it, and Junior's just backing in here. Get this 7930 hooked on, and then we'll get him loaded, send him over to the field, and we'll see how this thing does. We're gonna walk around it quick with a grease gun, grease everything. I think I counted 9 on the spreader, and then we've got some grease zerks up on this power shaft here. So that should work. All right, we'll get this ready to go here, and yeah. Well, we've got this all hooked up. We ran a grease gun around it. We torqued the wheels. Got our hoses hooked up the way we want them, and we have the speed of the ram set the way we want it. There's a flow control valve up on the front here, and that'll control how fast it goes back. And then when it comes forward, it'll run the speed that you have the hydraulics set on the tractor. So Andrew will go ahead and raise the tailgate here. And the tailgate's got some rubber curtains on it just to protect stones from flying back towards the tractor. They'll work like a mud flat, more or less. Now he's got to go ahead and push the ram back, and we have the ram set slow just so that it's not going too fast, because you don't want to lodge the beaters with manure. And then of course he can stop the ram, let the beaters catch up, start it again, so on and so forth. So this has just the front ram that pushes back. The old John Deere Hydro Push spreaders, that had like an L-shaped floor, and the floor would move back, and then once the floor moved back, the front of the ram would push what was on the floor off of the floor. The John Deere Hydro Push spreader, once they let their patent run out on the Hydro Push, these other companies were able to build Hydro Push as well. Everybody's got one now. H and S, Kuhn, our other spreader, our Kuhn spreader, we have I think it's a 144. That's a Hydro Push as well, and that's basically the same concept. They do make apron chains that run kind of like our silage trailers. This is all lined with poly on the sides and the floor, and it's all replaceable. Keep going. I don't know if, no. So this will let you see what it looks like when it's all the way back into the beaters. Now what I do notice is on this spreader, the top of the ram here, this extension, is a lot heavier than what we have on the Kuhn spreader. On the Kuhn spreader, it's basically just this piece here bolted to the top like that, and we've bent that back a couple times. What H and S has here is 2x2 square tubing, and it's 3/16 wall, so that should be pretty strong as far as holding that top to that ram. Looks like they've got 7/16 bolts. Maybe they're 3/8, where it's down in like a pocket, and if you screw that ram up, that top extension there, you can replace it. So we'll let him retract that. That's what the ram looks like when it's all the way back. And now he is pulling the ram back. And that is running the speed of the hydraulics on the tractor. You can set the speed of your hydraulics on the tractor to run this stuff as fast as you want, but you're going to be limited to what that can do as far as speed goes. There's only like 10 or 12 grease zerks on this whole spreader. And another thing that you can do with this spreader, this whole beater section here can come off of the spreader, and they've got this designed somewhat like they have their silage trailers, and that is you can lift this beater assembly right off of the spreader. It's real easy to do. Right down in underneath the spreader, you have a power shaft going to the main gearbox. Comes off just like the power shaft would go onto the tractor from the spreader. It's got a 3/4 inch bolt, one on each side. You take your bolts out, you hook something up top that you can raise, that you can lift this assembly off of there. You could pull this beater assembly off, and then you could have a, well, you could have a silage hauling manure spreader. You know, another great thing about the beaters lifting off, when we go broke and a gearbox goes on these beaters, we can just take the beaters off and just leave little piles of manure in the field, you know, just kind of like let it out in spurts, you know, leave little piles along the way. Another thing that I liked about this spreader is the back end is higher off the ground than the Kuhn spreader. The Kuhn spreader hangs down to maybe about here, and when you're going through low approaches, it will drag on the ground, and the first thing that hits on that one of the Kuhn is the gearbox. And this is real heavy duty. It is, well, that's all of a 1/4 inch of material there, and it is like a skid plate. So if in the event that Andrew wants to bounce through a ditch or something, and he wants to come out the other side without anybody knowing, that's just going to drag through very nicely and not hurt anything. So that is an added plus to the design of that. Now I've never been really too awful crazy about H and S equipment, because it's usually built a little lighter than the other stuff, but this seems to be built pretty good. It wasn't really up to Jared's standards when we pulled in here, but it's starting to grow on him a little bit. It's I think it's gonna be all right, don't you think? Yeah. Yeah. So we're gonna have Junior take this out back. We'll have him load it. He's gonna christen it for sure, and then we'll go to the field and we'll see how it does spreading off a load of manure. How about that, huh? Yeah. The other thing that this spreader has on it, which a lot of spreaders do, you can order these spreaders with truck tires on them, and that's what this has. It has 425 steer tires, the same size tire we run on the front of our silage trucks. We don't run a recap tire on the front of our trucks, although we could. That's what we could do with these. We could have them recap. These are just takeoffs that the manufacturer here has gotten from truck tire companies. Like this one is got a lot of tread on it, that one not so much. But yeah, well, go ahead, take her out back. I'll pick you up. We'll bring the telehandler out there and you can go ahead and christen it. All right, we'll let him get this thing loaded. It's starting to get a little warmer here, so we might only be able to spread a couple loads. We were going on semi-froze ground here, stiff ground, not froze to the point where we've got permafrost going on, but froze to the point where we didn't have a lot of mud. We'll see how far he goes before he realizes his tailgate's up in the air. Well, there he goes. He's seen it. Yeah. All right. Well, we are out back of the parlor. We have maternity pens on this side of the freestall. And when the guys clean the manure out of the box stalls, they come out that door there and out this door, and then they pile it on this cement pad, kind of a staging area. That way we don't necessarily have to clean it up right away. So this is the first bucket load going into the spreader. We probably don't quite have a load out here. We might have to move to another location to load up some more. But Andrew kicked Jared out of the telehandler and he says, I want to put the very first scratch in it. So he'll get this loaded up and then we will join up with you guys once we get to the field here. Some of that manure was frozen, so it'll be a pretty good test as to how this spreader does with ripping this stuff apart. And this is long straw too. We do not use the processor on our baler when we bale the straw, and we do not chop it when we put it into the box stalls. Grab that string, Jared. I don't know if you'll be able to pull it out of there or not. You might be able to just get a handle on it and let him dump it. That's the other thing. Our guys don't like to pick up strings. I don't know what they would do with small bales. There's, you know, 14, 15 small bales and a large bale. There's only two strings on a small bale. You would have 7 times the amount of strings, and they just have a hard time gathering 4 strings off of a large bale. I don't know if they just can't seem to count to 4 in order to be able to grab them all or not. So that looks like we might have to just cut it. But that Kuhn spreader that we traded in had about a skid steer bucket's worth of string wound around the augers, and we have a pile of string wound around the back beaters on the other spreader. All right, we'll join up with you when we get to the field here. Well, here he is. He's gonna just drive over the scale. This is not that heavy because it's all, I better get moving here. Oh, it's all mainly straw. And he has grossed 45,600 and some pounds, 45,880 pounds. Did anybody pick that up on camera? If you look, there might be a little yellow paint on one of them tires. Didn't hit it good enough. Oh well. He's gonna pull up next to the Kuhn spreader. We're still using the Kuhn spreader. We want to have two spreaders for when we want to clean up manure in a hurry, and just because we need two spreaders. It would be ideal to have one big huge vertical beater spreader and two V spreaders like we had that we traded in here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to walk around this other spreader here to kind of give you a little bit of a comparison between the two. Now, there's nothing wrong with this Kuhn spreader. This is a very nice spreader, but we're just going to point out some differences here. And one that you should notice right off the bat is the clearance from the, I mean, we got knee high there, and we are, you know, halfway up the shin high here. And you can see we've got a nice wrapping of strings on the beaters because these clowns can't pick up their strings. Yes, this has got truck tires on it. This has got implement tires. I don't know what size tires this would have. If it had implements, it would probably have 21.5 16 ones instead of, these are 16.5 16 ones. The spreader we traded in, I think, had 19s. I had the next size bigger, but these tires are like $800 a piece, and you can get a little more life out of a truck tire, and you have just as much flotation. You know, we're a hand and a half wide there compared to, well, about the same width as a 16.5. And as far as the overall length, we are the exact length. That's one thing I was concerned about slightly, was when we pull this into our little tiny shop, when we want to leave it in overnight to not be frozen, we will have enough room to get it in there because it's the same length as this spreader here. This is a 2044. They have one size bigger than this. Kuhn does. I don't remember how many cubic feet or bushels this one holds, but this one here holds 550.
That should be 440.
You think it's 440?
Yeah, 2044.
That's probably right, yeah.
So then the next biggest one, 550.
Yeah. H and S has one smaller than this one, vertical beater, but I don't know what size that is, and I don't think they have one any bigger. So, well, we'll meet you over to Emerton's. All right. How does it feel? Does it feel as heavy as that one when you're loaded? How much weight did he, well, what did he gross? 48 or 38? I'm gonna have to listen to the video now.
It was 50 something.
Yeah. All right. You'll have to get an empty weight on your way back and text me. Jacob's the man. But where he's going is only a few miles away. We'll throw the drone up in the air once we get to the field, and we'll get a real good look-see as to how this does. We're not really in the right truck to go out in the field to do a drive beside. At least I don't think we'll make it too far in this. We should have grabbed the rock saw. That's what we should have grabbed. Next time we'll do that. All right, we are on location here. Andrew's coming down across this field. This one field here is 60 acres. We've got 3 driveways that come in and out of it. He pulled in the first one. I pulled in the third one. I couldn't get into the other 2 with this little truck. There was too much snow in the driveways. Actually, where we are parked right now is where we loaded the 9560 that day the engine went. So he's got the tailgate up, and he's gonna go ahead and get started here. So we'll try to capture as much as we can here. I would like to be driving beside it and a pickup, but and he just turned the beaters on. He should have turned the beaters on before he lifted the tailgate. So there he goes. Looks like it's got a decent spread pattern. I can't tell how wide. They usually spread about 30 feet or so. It's got a real nice rock screen on the front of it to keep objects from coming back into the tractor. Looks like it's doing a real good job here. I don't know how long it's going to take to spread it off, but maybe we can check the timer on this video here. Bradley, the neighbor, driving by. I can hear a lot of clunking. There was a lot of frozen chunks of manure. Andrew actually left that pile of manure that they loaded up first here because it had some frozen chunks in it. So looks like this is ripping it up pretty good here. And that is it. He is empty. He'll take that back to the farm. Load up another load. And he'll get this job done. We're actually spreading on different ground than this ground here. We just brought him into here because the other fields that he has been spreading on are quite a bit smaller, and I just felt that we would have the drone up in the trees and every other damn thing. So that'll give you an idea of how the H and S 4255 Hydro Push spreader works. Now we'll get this drone flown back to the little truck here. And if you followed along in that video and we picked the 9560 up, you'll recognize where we're at. Right where this white truck is right where we plucked that 9560 up from out of the road here. So that ought to look somewhat familiar to you. Alright, take it easy folks. Thanks for watching. And we will catch you at the next one. Now maybe before we call it quits on this video, we'll just do a walk around of it. Where's Andrew?
Huh?
Where is he? Yeah, he caught himself some strings. That's one load. But I guess if you haven't got to cut strings off of beaters, you might as well just leave them there. So that's what she looks like when she gets done spreading a load. What you're gonna have to do, you're gonna have to treat this like liquid manure. Turn your beaters on first, then raise your tailgate. I know the box stall manure doesn't flow back, but it did on you back there. You know, when you first started up, you had some on there, so.
Oh yeah, I think that's because when I loaded it.
Yeah. All right, folks, that is gonna do it for this one. We'll catch you at the next video. Did it bog the tractor down at all? I mean, could you tell it was there? I mean,
I could tell it was there, but it wasn't like the tractor was struggling.
yeah.